So now we're going to be discussing about the rules for constructing integer constants. So these are just some like basic rules. There's no rocket science in it. So it's really simple. Just we're going to take a look to it and make sure you remember that, okay? So now number one rule is that integer constant must be just digits, and that's really obvious. Like if you put character or float into it, so that's going to be a float constant or you can say a character constant. So integer constant must include digits only, and by digits I mean it can be negative numbers, positive numbers, or any numbers on the interval line. Okay, so now we have, it must not have a decimal point, because if it really does, then it will be considered as a float constant. That, as I've told you about what is float, real, or a character constant in the previous video. Now it can be either positive or negative, as upon its, as long as it's upon the interval, like the numbers are from the interval. So interval includes negative numbers and positive numbers as well, okay? So if no sign, then the integer is considered to be positive. Like take a look at this number. There is no sign with it, so it will be considered positive according to the C program. So no commas or blanks are allowed within an integer constant. You cannot, if you are seeing these commas are just to separate these different types of examples. You cannot really put commas or blanks into the integer constant, because the C compiler will give you an error, okay? So the allowable range of an integer constant is negative 32,768 to positive 32,767. So these are just some examples of the integer constants, right? So now we have rules for constructing real constant. Okay, there are two types of real, or you can say float constant: the exponential form or the fractional form. Okay, now there are rules for the exponential form separately and the fractional form separately. Now fractional rules for following rules must be observed while constructing real constant, or you can say float constant, expressed in the fractional form. So this is the fractional form. This is the examples of the fractional form. So a real constant contains digits, and it must have a decimal point, because if it doesn't have a decimal point, then it is no longer a float constant. Then it comes under the category of the integer constant. Okay, so it could be either positive or negative. Just the same goes for the integer constant. Now default sign is positive. Like if you don't put any sign to a number, to a float number, then it would be considered positive, as just the basic mathematics rule as well, right? So no commas or blanks are allowed within a real constant. You cannot put commas or blank, because it will only give you an error. So make sure you consider that. And then the exponential form of representation of real constant is usually used if the value is either small or too large. If you have a very large value, or if you have a really small value, then you can use the exponential form. Okay, now in exponential form of representation, a real constant is represented in two parts. The part appearing before E is called mantissa. Just take a look at this example. The part before E, this positive 3.2, is the mantissa, whereas the part following E is called the exponent. The part following E, this negative 5, is called the exponent. Same goes here. Before the E, 4.1 is the mantissa, and after E, that is 8, is the, you can say that is the exponent, okay? Now we have some rules. The mantissa part and the exponential part should be separated by a letter E. The mantissa, 3.2, and the exponent part, negative 5, it must be separated by the E. Then it can only call the exponential form of the real or float constant. Then we have the mantissa part must may be a positive or negative number. If there's no sign put like this 4.1 raised to power 8, then it will be considered positive. The exponent must have at least one digit, which must be a positive or a negative integer. Default sign is positive. Default sign means that if you don't put any sign, then it would be considered positive. Range of real constant expressed in exponential form is this. this range, you must be considering this range. Under this, between these ranges, you can put any number in the exponential form. Beyond these ranges, it won't be even considered in the C program. It will just give you an error. That's why I have told you guys that there are some limitations in the C languages that we should consider or remember, right? So rules for constructing a character constant. So a character constant is a single alphabet, a single digit, or a single special or a special symbol enclosed within a single inverted commas. That is called a character constant. Both the inverted commas should point to the left. Look at these inverted commas. Both these inverted commas are pointing towards the left. And if it's not pointing towards the left, then your C program will give you an error. And these are the minute rules that you must be considering, okay? A valid character constant, whereas A is not. Look at this. The one inverted commas is pointing towards left, the other is pointing towards right. It will give you an error, okay? The maximum length of a character constant can be one character. Yes, and this character can be alphabet, it can be a number, or it can be a special symbol like equal here. So it can only be one character. That's why we use string in our program to make things easier, okay? Because all the time just a single character cannot really make a meaningful sense, okay? That's why we use string. Okay, so yeah, that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to be discussing types of C variables.